To Talk of the Town. Thanks so much for tuning in. My name's Karen Bukes and I'm the host this evening. Okay, let's get right to it and welcome some of our underwriters. New underwriter, Stoll's Cafe in Manamet, right there by the post office. Great food. I love Stoll's Cafe in Manamet. Jeff Cohen and One Stop Painting. Jeff does a fabulous job, great service. Another new underwriter, Evolution Hair Salon on Route 3A down there in Sagamore. Brewster, PC Solutions with Wrestling Brewster. Wrestling has a show right here on PAC TV. Attorneys Trifoletti and Costa on Long Pond Road. And another wonderful writer, Kevin and David Gallerani, Cape Auto and Cape Auto Service, Samoset Street and Sandwich Street. I should know that. Tonight's guest has an awesome responsibility and he does it very well. And he must carry out that responsibility even in the face of danger. Please welcome from the Emergency Operations Center in Plymouth, Aaron Wallace.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, Aaron. Thanks so much for coming in.
Sure thing.
I know you have a very busy schedule, and I was very pleased to book you, and you have a lot of great information.
Sure.
But let's start with some of your educational and personal background.
Sure. So I'm a resident of Plymouth. I grew up in Seekonk, Massachusetts, and went to school down in Washington, D.C. Went into the Coast Guard and was a Coast Guard officer on active duty for a number of years. And then came back to Boston, got married, worked for the state for a little bit, and then I was lucky enough to apply for a position here in Town of Plymouth as the Emergency Management Director.
We're lucky to have you, Aaron. I understand you do a fabulous job. You get great credit.
Thank
People
you.
love you.
I enjoy it quite a bit.
Where is the Emergency Center?
Sure. So the Office of Emergency Management works out of the Emergency Operations Center. We're located in Cedarville Village, at the Cedarville Village Fire Station, and in a building adjacent to that station. And the EOC, or the Emergency Operations Center, is located at 2209 State Road.
Now, you used to be up there by the Plymouth North High School. Actually, the first place you were in was in the basement of Town Hall. And Dickie Quintal, a former selectman, took one look at that and said, oh my God, this can't stay like that.
Sure. I think when the program started and was started to be funded through Boston Edison at the time, they had an emergency operations center that was stood up in Memorial Hall in the basement. It moved from Memorial Hall to Town Hall at 11 Lincoln Street under my predecessor. And then from there we moved to 44 Oberry Street. So the basement of that building is the Entergy's, Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station's emergency operation facility, and then we were upstairs sharing an office space at 44 Oberry Street.
Years ago, I helped out that emergency center by placing phone calls. They needed phone calls.
Sure.
Now it's automatic. Somewhat, but I went in I gave the fellas a break for 2 hours, and I went in and made phone calls to citizens of Plymouth because there was something, a storm
Sure.
had happened, and I was pleased to do it. It was really great.
We have a number of great volunteers. Some of them have been supporting emergency management within Plymouth for over 20 years, and they're great. They come in, they help us exercise some of the plans that we have. They assist us during storms.
Nice.
During shelter operations, they're there to help the citizens in the shelters and also the school department workers who are also supporting us.
Excellent. I don't see any reason why anybody would not support you. What kinds of storms do you oversee?
Okay. Well, we do a lot of planning, and we do a lot of exercising, but part of that is also making sure that we're able to activate the Emergency Operations Center to support the community in the time of need or time of emergency. So the last 3 activations we've had for a storm event were as soon as the EOC opened in 2011, we had Tropical Storm Irene.
Oh, yeah.
Not too many impacts in the town of Plymouth. After that was the Superstorm Sandy. We were open for that. And then our largest community-based emergency or incident in the last few years has been the blizzard or winter storm Nemo of 2013. So we were activated for that as well too.
Is the center eligible for grants?
Sure. So we receive federal grants. We're also eligible for some state grants that run through, that are passed down to the federal government. We also receive grants from Entergy Nuclear Power Station to support some of the local emergency response planning that needs to be done in order to maintain compliance with federal regulations concerning emergency preparedness for communities within a emergency planning zone of a nuclear power facility.
So do you come under the state more for that? Does the state help out in that way too?
Somewhat, but I say most of our funding comes through, for general purpose issues, comes through the town.
Okay.
And then for our planning and our exercises and our resource management for supporting the EOC in order to maintain the federal criteria regulations, that comes through Entergy.
Okay, so they do give good monies. That's great. How about Homeland Security? Do they help you? Are you part of Homeland Security?
I'm not part of Homeland Security. We're a local office. So back in 1950, the state of Massachusetts, under the Massachusetts general laws, put out Chapter 639, which created civil defense. And civil defense is the older format for the community framework for emergency management. And so each town in the state of Massachusetts or community has to have a emergency management director appointed. So I am the emergency management director for the town of Plymouth. I work directly with the state of Massachusetts and the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency when we have an issue such as a blizzard or the storm and we need resources, extra tree crews for debris management.
Sure.
We'll request that through the state. If we have a local emergency, we'll declare a local emergency through the Board of Selectmen. From there, that declaration goes to the state, and if it meets a number of criteria, then it'll go on to the federal government, and the president will declare
I hope
it.
that never happens.
Last time we've had it happen was Sandy, and we also
Sandy.
for Tropical Storm Irene, and then this last one in 2013 was a blizzard. And so after we have a storm or an event, we move into recovery mode, and that includes capturing a bunch of information. How much did the town spend on clearance of highways or equipment damages? And then we will go back to the federal government and request them to fund services and to a certain margin to bring those funds back in and put them back into the general fund.
I'll tell you, we have a great tree department here in Plymouth because they were out in front of the house today clearing where the cables were. They're very fastidious about that, and they keep up with it. I think it's one of the best towns that keeps up with their tree pruning and all of that, so electricity won't go out.
We do, and we work very closely with the utilities on that item. And NSTAR, past Tropical Storm Irene and Sandy, has also improved their response and pre-planning for storm events.
Now, did I hear you say you are part of the Coast Guard?
I am a reservist, yes.
Nice. So you
yeah.
go down to the base?
I have worked out of the base in the at the Mass Military. It's now called Joint Military Base Cape Cod.
Right.
I do most of my drilling or reserve time with the Navy out at Naval Station Newport.
You know, I wish they never got, replace those planes in another area. I loved those jets.
They're quite busy though still, and they still have a lot of function going on down there.
Now, folks, we do have a film to show you, the EOC, and they're telling me it's 6 minutes long, and Aaron will speak while the
Sure.
video is playing, but we'll do that in a few minutes. Okay, Kenny? Okay. Now, in an emergency, how would you contact the civilian population?
Okay, so the Emergency Operations Center is activated for probably 3 different reasons.
Yeah.
1, we have a notice event, so we know there's a storm coming or a hurricane. 2, there's a no-notice event, which is something has happened, and we have protocols and procedures in place to notify chiefs of police, chief of fire, town management, selectmen, and the state, and then open and activate the EOC. And the 3rd one would be a special event, so something like our Thanksgiving Day Parade or July 4th, we'll open and activate just in case there's
because the crowds,
and also just to maintain that connection between the state, that if there was an incident or something we would require assistance with or resources for, we could order directly through them.
And also, I know the Sheriff's Department works with that also.
Very
They're
much so.
always there. They're very, very helpful. And you work very closely with the Police Department as
Yes.
well as the Fire Department.
Sure.
They're all there.
No, we have a very good relationship. So when we talk about emergency management, it's not just one person. It's actually an entire function of government, and it takes into play what we call emergency support functions. And so when you'll see in the video, we'll show desks and phones and computers. And those are actually where our ESFs, or emergency support functions, sit. And there are different personnel from the town departments that are drawn in and selected to sit in those seats. And it helps us coordinate responses in town.
Is the facility set up so if you had to shower there, cook there, you have all that?
Yes, we do.
That's good, because you could be hunkering down for...
Oh yeah, I've put a few nights in on a cot in my office. So.
Sure. What if a civilian showed up because they couldn't get to a shelter in central Plymouth?
Sure, and we've had that happen, where residents have come in and they just not feeling that they could drive all the way, and we've arranged for them to get transportation down to the shelter.
Right. I mean, Stephen in there, he was out without electricity or heat for days and days on end. We were out 3 days on that terrible
storm,
Sandy.
right?
Oy, oy, oy. That, we had to go to my daughter's house. And thank God she had heat. So you work with the fire department and our police department. Who pays? You said Entergy pays for the facility, Entergy. And does the facility cover any other area except for Plymouth?
No, it's the local jurisdiction's
So
emergency
each
operations
section,
center.
each
Yes.
town or
Each town
county or
will
whatever?
have its own EOC in some respect.
Good.
Carver has their own emergency operations center. Marshfield, Duxbury, Kingston.
Okay.
The facility itself opened in 2011, and it was paid for between a mix of local funding and also funding provided through Entergy Nuclear Power.
Okay. Do we want to see the film now?
Sure.
Okay, Kenny, you want to set that up? Thank you, dear. Okay. He's setting that up. And I haven't seen it yet. Kenny ran down today and did some filming.
He did.
Yeah, he's real good like that. And 50 million things he's got to do. Do you have it? Oh boy. Okay, so it's playing? Oh, it's not playing. Oh, I wonder why. Oh, it's not playing. I'm so sorry. Oh, something happened. I'm sorry, Aaron.
That's okay. We can.
He's going to work on it right now.
You got it.
As I mentioned, former Selectman Dick Quintal, this facility was near and dear to his heart.
Sure.
Is he still part of it? Does he come and visit? Does he?
So in 2007, we started negotiating with the power company. Selectman Quintal was there at with many of those negotiations with us, and also signed off on a few grants that we requested funding out of the federal Homeland Security, and also the state for Emergency Operations Center. But he was a big part of that, and he did have a plan in place to move it to a facility that would be able to establish and support the.
Yeah, he was the force behind that. And if you ever want to find a selectman with a bigger heart, you couldn't find him. And Matt Moratori's like that. But
he was known to come by on any storm or exercise or planning.
He would ride with the men in the trucks.
Sure.
You know, he was hands-on. Now, another one I totally respect and admire, and that is our Chief Ed Bradley. He is phenomenal.
Sure thing.
And he's a local boy. Stephen, may I have a tissue, dear? I'm sorry to be saying this right on air, but if I don't, there's going to be a problem. You talk about allergies, you and I both. But Ed Bradley is one of the most sincerest, hardest workers I know in this town. And he's just a good person.
Sure. Chief's got his finger on the pulse of everything that's going on in our office.
He really does. And I mean, he knows everybody, and his demeanor is always calm and kind, and I just love him. Are you at the center every day?
Every day. So we have open business hours from 8 to 4:30. There's two full-time employees, myself and Nancy Erickson, and she's our training assistant and also our administrative assistant. And she's there every day to take phone calls and support questions of the community. We do have a lot of people that drop in. Questions. They just moved to the area. They're concerned about some of the planning. They're concerned about
the power
storms,
plant.
where they're located near a riverbed or where they're located by the coast, and how to get assistance.
What floods?
Exactly. Especially with the firm maps or the flood insurance rate maps
I saw those
this year. So right now we're on hold with our flood insurance rate maps until about 2015. They're still under review. And
thank God I'm not in a flood zone. I don't know how people are going to afford it.
Sure, and I think that's a big concern.
It's a huge concern.
And as we get closer to that 2015 kickoff period again, I think we'll have a few more open events in town where people can come and meet with FEMA and also insurance adjusters to figure out how that's going to work.
That's a question I have. FEMA. Do they come and visit you? You go there? Do you go to Washington? Where is the central office for FEMA?
Sure. So FEMA's divided up into regions, and we happen to be in Region 1, which is pretty much New England.
Yeah.
The Region 1 office is located in Boston. We meet with regional staff quite often, usually on a monthly basis, because their job is to oversee the federal radiological emergency preparedness program. So they need to come in and they'll meet with us for meetings on a monthly basis, but they also go out to our schools, our daycare centers, assisted living centers, hospitals, ask questions, ensure that we have planning in place that's required. We'll see them prior to a storm event. We'll see them after a storm event. On a daily basis, when I get in the first thing in the morning, usually I do is we check the forecast and then also check the operations brief from FEMA. So we have access to everything FEMA puts out to their regional offices, and also whatever the Department of Homeland Security is putting out in the morning or throughout the day. Yesterday was the MERS information that came out.
No kidding. I heard about that.
So yeah, I'd say the connections between the local community, the state, and federal are very wide open, and we have a good coordination base to go forward with.
That's a good question. What if the bird flu came here? You know, MERS,
Sure.
and it's down in Florida now, but they said they have it under control. It's scary. It is very upsetting.
It is.
Because it's a killer. It's a killer virus.
Sure.
So what's the plan?
So we have pandemic preparedness
Pandemic.
plans that are
That's
in,
the word. I'm scrambling in my mind for that
and
word.
typically for those plans, they are initiated by the Department of Public Health. On the local side, we're required to have these plans, and those plans consist of creating special shelters, creating inoculation,
Hospital would be involved.
right, a secondary hospital or an alternate hospital care site.
Yeah.
So we work with the hospital on those. But
Yeah.
knock on wood.
What is the status on that today?
That pandemic plan exists for the town of Plymouth.
No, the MERS down in Florida.
MERS. There are two cases that they've tested
Yeah.
positive. One was in Indiana, and that was a few months back, and then this last one here, the gentleman from Saudi Arabia, and they have I think they had about 220 to 200 people under evaluation.
See, you go in an airplane and
It's a very global society, so
yeah, don't get me started. Now I know you could conduct drills. I know
Sure.
that, and your staff there. The girl's name again?
Nancy.
The lady's and she goes to school for that. She's been
Yeah,
educated for what she does.
Nancy's been working in Duxbury and in Plymouth, and also for MEMA as a state trainer for quite some time, about 17 years or so, I think. So.
How about our ambulances in town?
Yep.
You work with them.
Sure. So on a quarterly basis, we'll have what we call a local emergency planning committee meeting, and that brings in everybody. So representative from the school, fire, police, medical services, or ambulances, the hospitals show up. May bring a private utility, or someone from Tech Etch may show up as well too. And we'll discuss some of our local planning. Our next one is usually around this time of year, end of May, beginning of June, and we discuss our hurricane annex plan.
Yeah,
so we
because
do have a hurricane plan, and we make changes to that on annual, if they need be, an annual review.
Right.
And our next plan for this year that we're trying to get done in time is the debris management plan, and that is our big one, because FEMA is changing the way that they refund communities. So if we didn't have a hurricane and we had a lot of vegetative debris or house debris, construction debris, and if we had an approved plan in place, that'll allow us to get up to 85% of those costs reimbursed.
Excellent.
Rather than just 75.
Oh,
so that's what we're working on now.
Excellent. That's good. Now, which brings me to the Entergy. And I know Entergy's been a good neighbor over the years. They do help different issues and with issues and whatever. But everybody is concerned about those rods. The placement of those rods, and a lot of people, including myself, feel that we're the host town, and we should be compensated for that, but that's not your thing. Do you believe in sheltering in place?
Sure. Sheltering in place is one protective action that we could use for a number of issues. There could be what we prepare for within government buildings, or like a library or a school, where you shelter in place because there might be an issue out on the outside of that building or the inside. We also would use evacuation. So when we talk about sheltering in place for a protective action recommendation from a nuclear power plant, it is typically because we want people to get inside. We want them to listen to the information that's being put out through media from the State Emergency Management Agency, to give them an idea that it's safer inside until we can figure out how to best get you out of that area. And shelter in place is to protect you from contamination.
Yes, but do you really think 63,000 people getting, in their cars, and which route do you take? Do you go west? Do you go north? It depends on where the wind is blowing.
Nope, we have an extremely difficult footprint to evacuate from, and we're not built like most metropolitan areas after 1950 were constructed to provide those throughways, freeways, and 4-lane highways, or what they do down south is called contraflow, where you're actually sending traffic off the exits and out the roadways that you would normally be sending them south on.
I see that in fires out west.
So we're restricted, and the best we can do is try as hard as possible is to plan and effectively communicate to the public as to what is the best option for them at the given time during a given incident. Last week we had a meeting with the Department of Transportation, Federal Department of Transportation. We're currently waiting on the results of another emergency evacuation plan that was done for the Cape. This time of year, I meet with the Barnstable County Regional Emergency Planning Committee. We talk about bridge closures for hurricanes. I hope to see a plan that comes into play that is for the region and not just for the emergency planning zone or the Cape or Massachusetts. We need a plan that looks toward what they do down the Gulf Coast, where they do have nuclear power facilities and they do have low-lying areas, or metropolitan New York, where they have a good evacuation plan structure there. And I'm hoping that because of the amount of meetings we've had this year already, we're going to see some movement toward that and maybe a regionally focused evacuation plan.
Because, a lot of people just think it's a joke. I mean, they would not get in their car. They would shelter in place. And because we hear of no plan in regards to that. The Centergy has, said things to do, but I think it should really come out of FEMA and...
Well, when we do our exercises, so we just completed an exercise. Those are the conversations that we're having with the state and federal partners during the exercise. We're taking into account what's happening on the plan. What are the conditions, the environmental conditions? What's the worst case scenario? How do we manage traffic through different areas or the communities or the region? And we know people are going to get in their cars.
Yeah.
They do this for special events here in Plymouth. They do this for snowstorms. They do this for hurricanes. We know people are going to move. We have to do the best in order to communicate what we would want people to do in the event of an emergency.
I'm getting on my bicycle.
Okay.
Me and Kenny, with our helmets on, we're getting on our bicycle, pack some food, a knife, and a can opener, and leaving, if we have to. But it's pretty scary. Now, how often do you go to the State House or Washington?
I don't have to go to Washington. Everything we need to do with the federal government can be done here, and they will make a point to come out here. The Federal Emergency Management Agency has a training center in Emmitsburg, Maryland. That's someplace that if I need some training on, or we want to get a little bit more information on new planning in place, I'll go there and we'll take some training. A lot of it because we can telework. They'll come out to us and provide training. In the last few years, we've had FEMA and also the Department of Energy sent out folks to do training with some of the fire department, some of the local responders in the area to give them training that they normally would have to go, say, out to New Mexico for or somewhere else.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking, I think the best escape route is by boat.
It's all dependent on what's going on.
Yeah. Do you have a Doppler system?
A Doppler system. No, we do have some weather services that we actually are subscribed to. So we use a private company. It's all internet dependent, and they give us some meteorological updates and radar pictures that it may be a little bit different product than what the National Weather Service has given us.
Which brings me to, do you have a backup system? Do you
Sure.
have generators and all of that? I mean, what if one system goes down?
Sure. So the EOC itself has a generator which powers the fire station and also the Emergency Operations Center, and it's run on diesel. So if we were to get low, we just have to find diesel to put in there. We also have an emergency backup power supply, which gives us about 5 hours of battery backup in the event that we were having an issue with the generator. After the 2013 blizzard, we recognized that there was a vulnerability on Verizon's phone system, so we had them come in and replace our copper lines with,
Oh, I remember that.
yep, with some
I voted
fiber.
for
And
that.
we
Yeah.
we made some improvements there, but we do have auxiliary power at the EOC.
And so you have computers,
We do.
and you know, one of our fire engines has a Doppler system.
I'm sure it does. Well, we can log into the National Weather Service's radar and their pictures, and we can actually, I have a chat mechanism. I can chat directly with the meteorologists on station, ask them direct questions. And they also have a phone line. So if we're concerned about a fire at one of our plants or a fire at a hazardous materials site, I can call them and ask them questions about potential pluming or potential areas in the community that I'd want them to shelter in place because we don't want them outside being exposed to whatever the smoke is in the smoke. They're very good, and the National Weather Service in Towne is one of those places too. I go to
Oh, that's a
couple
good
times a
one.
year, and
Yeah.
we work with them quite a bit.
Now, I understand you had some school children in today.
Not today, but about 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks
yeah,
ago?
I think we had about 7 classes of 4th and 5th graders that were doing a robotics competition, and so they wanted to learn more about how robots and robotics could be used in emergency services.
Of course.
So yeah, they were great. They asked a lot of questions.
That's great. Science, you know, we got to get our kids really interested in science. Now, okay, you said where the FEMA central office is in Massachusetts, that's Boston?
Yes, up in Boston.
And you said that they visit. Excuse me, my throat is not good.
That disc is not going to play.
It's not going to play?
Not going to play.
What happened?
It's too much of a problem to go into. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right.
But I have some questions if you.
Okay, go ahead. You have to come closer. Everybody's whispering. Go ahead.
Having been at the center, I found that one of the interesting components to me as a citizen was the communication system that you have set up in the room. And I'm wondering if maybe you could go over for the public
Sure.
all of the fail-safes and drop-deads and all of backup to the backup to the backup. I think that would make a lot of people feel a lot better.
Sure.
Thank you.
At the EOC, we do have a communications room. At the communications room, we have what we call our direct notification network, and that's an emergency call-down system from the plant. So Entergy, Pilgrim Station, in the event of an emergency, could provide us information a few ways, via telephone, radio, faxes. We also have an IP network with them. They can send us any information if they have an issue on site. We also have communications and backup dispatches for the police department
Right.
and the fire department. We have radio communications with the state on a few different frequency types, 800, VHF, UHF.
Wow.
We have the Cape Cod 800 networks of police and fire from the Cape Cod communities in our station as well. So we're well-rounded to support the 911 center, which is our main communication center at the Plymouth Police Department, and also the efforts of the fire department and at their fire alarm service as well.
I wonder if it's, you know, be good to just get a police scanner, just to have it around in case things happen.
You know, after events, we do get calls from people saying that they listened to the police scanner and they were asking, or the fire was out with Denstar, and what does that mean, and what does that, so we have to explain to them. But it'll give you an idea of how hard the department's working during incidents like this.
I'm sure. I'm positive. Stephen, did you have a question? No? in your experience, is there anything significant one should do? Let's say if a real huge event happened.
Okay.
Let's say God forbid, a part of the forest is on fire.
Sure.
You recommend.
So historically, that's an issue here in Plymouth.
Yeah.
Right? Thankfully, though, we kind of now work in the age of cell phone, so we can get information a lot more quickly about events happening in the community. In the event of an emergency, we would always ask people to turn on their television. Turn on their television or turn on their radio. In the event that we had an issue with the power station, we would be putting information out through our local EAD or Emergency Alert System, EAS system. And that would give people information on what they should do and what they can do to prepare themselves.
I think people should have radios with batteries.
Sure.
And if the cell phones go out, at least you have a battery radio. I know Kenny put a few apps on my phone for radio.
Yep.
I even have a New York station. But if the cell phone goes out, at least you have a radio with a battery in it.
So you bring up a good point. So one place that people can go that we ask people to take some time on, kids, adults, businesses, is www.ready.gov, ready.gov.
Yeah.
And that is the central website for the nation to go to for emergency preparedness planning and information.
Okay, ready.gov.
There you go, ready.gov. And you can plug in there and ask what you should have in a ready kit, 72-hour kit for in your home.
Oh my God, you should see what my sister has. She could build another house.
She's ready then.
She's ready for a year. Unbelievable.
But those type of questions that you had about what to do during a wildfire, what to do during a hurricane or a tornado, that information's on their website.
Ready.gov.
You got it.
And just put it in your favorites.
Yep, there's apps for it. You can get online.
Oh, there is an app
Sure.
for it? Okay, Kenny, that's another app. And that's free.
There's a lot of information that is being pushed out these days. So people who enjoy social media, FEMA has an entire suite of apps and also social media links on Twitter and Facebook to provide information. The state of Massachusetts does as well too.
Yeah, okay, very good. I'll look that up.
Sure, go to ready.gov. It's
ready.gov. Excellent. I'm so glad you said that because I had no idea.
And if you can't find it, go to our website. So the Town of Plymouth's website, under the Department's Emergency Management, we have a whole list of click-on applications, and you can get to these websites for more information.
I'll do that. That's fabulous. And I know you're growing the station every year. I mean, you're making it better. You're getting new equipment.
Sure.
But it's a necessary facility that we need. Yes, Stephen.
When an emergency is declared, who all is in the center? And is there a commander? So is there one person who makes the decision on what's going to happen? Or, how does, you must have a bunch of people in there.
Good question.
So I was just curious, who was the one that
Sure.
make the decision?
So if we had a special incident in the town, and we have a plan for that, certain people are notified. Obviously, our public safety departments, the chiefs of public safety. We also notify our elected officials, our town manager.
Who's the first call?
The first calls usually come in to the police department. So
Who do you call first?
my job and the call matrix is typically fire and police, and I get a call at the same time.
Okay.
If not, I'll go back and contact both chiefs and make sure they're notified of the issue. And from there, we go and notify the town manager.
Yeah.
The town manager will typically notify the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
If she can't or he can't, I will notify the Board of Selectmen and give them more information. We'll give them notification as to what the issue is, if the EOC is going to be activated, and if the EOC is activated, if we're going to have a conference call or we're going to set up at the EOC and provide them with a situation report as to what's going on.
Now, we have an airport.
We do.
Do you have a helicopter ready?
We don't have a helicopter ready on station, but there is a, actually, I think it's Thursday, tomorrow, they're doing a mass casualty drill at the airport.
Oh, they
to
are.
practice their procedures in case there was an emergency there tomorrow.
Yikesy.
So yeah, but we do have the state police that are there, and they're used quite often. They're air wing, but for evacuation type helicopters, if we had a need for that, we would have to call this and request those for the state.
Oh, I see. What about pets? You know, people, I wouldn't leave my pet.
Right.
And it's so sad, and it's heart-wrenching to leave your pet at home
Sure.
and leave.
And
I would never do it.
So what we want you to know is that we will have a shelter in place, a shelter in the town of Plymouth that will be able to support your pets, your small animals.
Really?
But we
Excellent.
need the pet owner to prepare themselves for that. So when you come to a shelter that is pet friendly, have a cage, have your leashes, have your pets' medications, information about shots.
Yeah.
Have their food.
Have their food.
We have opened shelters in the past and taken care of small animals, and when the pet owner shows up with just a dog in hand and nothing prepared, it's much more difficult to deal with.
Of course. But people, you know, died with their pets
Sure.
in the house. It's
And you go right back to ready.gov, and they'll have a specific information page just on how to prepare your pets in the event of an emergency,
yeah.
and how to move them, how to even do first aid on them if you needed to. So
Sure, I know how to do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
you CPR to a dog.
Yeah. But Stephen has a dog about as big as his table.
That's a big dog.
I just couldn't see that dog in a cage, but he's huge. What is he, a mastiff? Something. But if he stood up, he'd tower over you.
Well, we've dealt with a few different
Yeah.
size pets, and it's always better if the person that's bringing the pet or the pet owner comes and they're prepared. And it makes it so much
course.
easier and less stressful for everybody else at the shelter.
So, it's a Great Dane.
Great Dane, that's a big dog.
Huge.
Big dog.
And
Gets his own room.
Steven keeps saying he's small. He's small for his type. Oh, really? My God. Comes up to Steven's waist when he's walking, above his waist. But, so what kind of foodstuffs would you say we keep in the house?
You want to go with non-perishable foods, and if again you go down to www.ready.gov, they'll give you a listing of foods that you want to keep in your Ready kit. In the event that we open a shelter in the community, typically food service is one of those things that we have to provide, and it's either done through the American Red Cross if they're supporting, or it's done locally through the Plymouth Public School System. And the food service workers are always excellent. They come out no matter what and make sure there's a variety of foods and keep people safe, warm, and well fed.
I know we're talking 2 centuries ago, there was great fever and sickness here in Plymouth, and a lot of people died. We're talking, in the 18th century or something.
Okay.
They died. It was awful. A lot of young children died, all through the country. And if that ever happened again, our hospital would be at the ready?
So the hospitals have federally required plans and emergency procedures in place.
Oh, they're mandated.
And they are mandated. We work with them to make sure that they have a capability, and they also have a system in place to request services from us if we can assist them in providing. So if we were to need extra support for, say, a mass fatality incident or
A triage tent.
Yep, we would probably put those requests directly through the state. And the state EOC, which is in Framingham, Massachusetts, in the bunker, they would work with federal partners and also local and state agencies to kind of coordinate that.
Yep, I've seen that on television, how they do that.
Sure.
And it's just a buzz with, a lot of activity, a lot of machines going off in the background, and they do a good job.
Very busy in coordination, and their capabilities, I think in most communities, capabilities have improved in probably the last decade.
Are you here?
No, I'm not.
What?
I'd like to know how mobile the facility is in the event of an emergency. How, if you had to
Sure.
scoot,
Pick up and go.
pick up and go, what kind of preparedness do you have in place for that?
So, resiliency for the EOC. If we were to lose the EOC, the functions that we can coordinate can be coordinated somewhere else. And typically for a disastrous storm, we've worked that out ahead of time. If we had a loss of power in our EOC, or if people couldn't work out of there. What we're moving and working toward now is more of a virtual EOC concept, where I can provide the departments with software in place, and they can all communicate
I
via
like that.
the internet if the internet's running.
If the NC,
right.
Kenny won't even do banking online because he says if that goes down, what do we do?
That's right.
So you keep up with technology?
Yes. Yeah, we have to. And a lot of the systems in place now require us to have that capability in our EOCs. I can communicate with the National Operations Center in Washington via internet right now if we needed to.
Mm-hmm.
We can communicate with a number of other facilities and agencies very quickly via web chat or online, and post files and post plans and post procedures back and forth.
Now, on 9/11, that horrific day,
Sure.
did New York City have emergency management?
Yes, they did. And unfortunately, their Emergency Operations Center was located within, I think, Building 7. So it was located in World Trade Center. And what they learned from that was that it shouldn't have been there. Because that building had been targeted in 1993, it should have
That's
been moved
right.
from that facility. They are now in Brooklyn, and they're in a new facility, and they have quite a job.
Yeah, they really do.
Sure.
That was horrific. Now, how do you track a storm? It comes, I mean, you're talking to people across the country. Let's say something's coming here, and you touched upon it earlier. You got upset, you got concerned when a particular storm, Sandy, hit Cape Hatteras.
Sure.
You knew the way it was coming in that this was going to be a big one.
Sure.
So are you talking to the people there, and they, are you communicating?
So if we want the most up-to-date information, say for a tropical storm or hurricane, we can communicate directly with the National Hurricane Center. What happens is very far out, just off the coast of Africa, when they start tracking a storm, the FEMA and DHS will start putting out situational assessment reports as to what's happening and where the predictions go. It's very difficult to track hurricanes' movements. And actually this year they're changing it. They're actually moving, shrinking the cone size in, because they felt that the cone was so wide, it wasn't an effective way of telling people that you may be hit or you may not be.
It's quite alarming. I'm the type I want to know, but
Sure.
when it comes off of Africa like that, they have a number of what do they call them, of printouts of how one equipment, one machine will have it in a narrower area,
You got
another
it.
one will bring it out, and
That's modeling. So
modeling.
They model different factors and conversions of weather type and pressure systems and everything else. And
drives the weatherman crazy because he's got to pick one.
it does. And and we watch that with the winter storms too. And I guess they're very, very difficult for meteorologists to predict.
They are.
We watch them on the chat service and also in direct discussion with the weather service. And they're changing, continually changing their forecast totals because the modeling is always kind of an unrefined metric of science to try to figure out.
Well, look how far we've come. I mean,
Sure.
One day, centuries ago, you woke up, it was a sunny day. The next, everything was blown away, and
Sure,
including yourself. And without warning.
hurricane of 1938
Yes.
through Rhode Island and parts of Connecticut, and I think they lost
showed
about 600
pictures of
people.
that, yeah.
Sure, and Galveston Bay
It was like toothpicks, the
Yeah.
houses.
and that's a storm that storm type is concerning because that was a surge type storm, and that's what
Yeah,
we saw with
Sandy.
Sandy, right? Sandy was a Category 2. It changed to a Category 1 off of Georgia, and then turned into an extratropical storm, which
Yeah.
necessarily isn't a very strong hurricane,
No.
but because of the size of that storm and the storm surge that it was
Just
able to
sucked everything.
was able to build and push that water through
It
New
pushed
Jersey.
into New York City.
Sure did, yeah.
I never saw anything like it ever.
I think the last total in March of costs associated with Sandy was like 68 billion.
Billion.
And in March, Governor Malloy in Connecticut, he just passed and set aside a bill to create a fund for citizens in Connecticut to apply for projects to improve their home. So lift their home if they're near the seacoast and make some infrastructure improvements, which is something we don't have here in Massachusetts, but I can see it happening down the road if we see damages like they saw in the Connecticut, Metro New York area.
Oh, I never saw anything like that.
Yeah.
Never witnessed it, never want to see it again. So would you be support for if that happened again in another state? Would you send people, or would you be support? How would you support them?
For the other states
Yeah.
and communities? Well,
It's like the fire department,
Sure.
they'll go to a different town or, if needed.
so the state of Massachusetts has what they call an Emergency Management Assistance Compact. And they have to do certain things in order to remain within that compact. But how this works out best for us is that if we had a storm that really destroyed a bunch of our resources, plows, trucks, utility crews, because we're a member of that compact, we can rely on other compact members
Good.
or outside Oklahoma or Virginia
Good.
or Vermont can come down. And Vermont found out after Tropical Storm Irene that being a part of an Emergency Management Assistance Compact is a very important thing.
No kidding.
Because they were left without getting resources that other compact members have. So there is a system in place for Massachusetts to assist, and they do. They move assets. Many of the utilities do that now too. So when we have a snowstorm, you'll see truck crews from Texas or Quebec and working in our area and working to put the lines back up.
Yeah. Are you on well water down there in Cedarville?
No, we're on street water.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So am I. There's nothing like it. And you have the kitchen and the showers. I mean, the firemen do too.
They
They're
sure
upstairs.
do. They are. They're upstairs.
Yeah. So, I mean, you've got a good support system there yourself.
That's why we chose that facility,
Yeah.
that location.
And you had to reconfigure it. Did the mold go away?
Oh, that was in the community center.
The community
So yeah, the
center.
community center was they re-engineered the HVAC system and put in some special paints and removed
Good.
some of the old, and it's worked out real well.
Yeah.
They put a new flooring in, a new furniture, and it gets used quite a bit.
Yeah. And so you're down there in Cedarville, and so that facility on Aubrey Street is now what?
That facility is still used by Plymouth County, so they may rent it out for, right now there's, I think, a police academy class in there. The basement of that facility is still used by Entergy, and that's their emergency operations facility. So in the event that we get activated for an emergency, they activate that building as well. And so people that work for Pilgrim go there, man phones, and we communicate with them through
How
our
about the
ESC.
sheriff's department? Have you gone to the sheriff's, the jail?
Sure. So we,
Yeah.
on a monthly basis, we the emergency management directors all get together, and they have an emergency management director for the sheriff himself, and we work on planning and procedures. And they do host our communications for Plymouth County out of that building there, so we do talk to them quite a bit. They also host our call system. So if we wanted to put a call out to say the people of Manamet, to let them know about a extremely high tide or potential for flooding, the sheriff's department system will make those calls for us.
I heard, I forget which weatherman it was, but they said, who knows, but they said that this year that they didn't think they would get as many hurricanes.
Hurricanes, right. So in April 10th, around there, Colorado State University puts out their like
List.
pre-prediction.
Yeah.
And basically, we'll wait for the National Hurricane Center to
Yeah.
put out theirs, but they're looking at colder than average sea surface temps. And they believe that with the colder than average sea surface temps and a neutral El Nino, or an El Nino that's
Really?
coming, that they believe that there'll be one major hurricane and 9 named storms. So we'll wait and see. I mean, changes can happen, water
Yeah,
temperatures
and
can
it's-
go up.
Yeah. El Nino, I mean, look at what's happening in California.
Sure.
They're boiling over there. It's hotter
the drought.
than, the drought. And, oh my God, we have 3 minutes. And my daughter's out there. She's in San Diego. So it's quite worrisome. But, Aaron, I enjoyed you very much. You had a
Oh, this is
lot
great.
of information. And why don't you tell everyone what, wrap it up, tell the people, what you're all about.
Sure. If you have a chance to get online, definitely go to www.ready.gov, and we'll maintain our emergency management framework here in Plymouth to assist the community. If you do have questions, you can go on to our webpage and send me an email, and feel free to call the EOC itself, and we'll try to get you those answers.
You were really good. I mean, when I emailed you back and forth, we were going, you're very good at answering your emails.
Sure.
So, I mean, you're accessible.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
if you want to take a tour down there, I recommend it. Kenny's been there twice. Maybe you'll get that DVD.
That hasn't
going.
worked out too well.
No. Astrologically, something must be in, because that was the second time.
Let's take 2, right?
Yeah, take 2. And next week, you should look forward to this. I won't be here, but Jeff Cohen is hosting, and Mamma Mia's is coming in. And they opened up a new restaurant in the Pine Hills, and I hear it's yummy. So I recommend you going there too. So do you frequent restaurants here in Plymouth?
We frequent Mamma Mia's quite a bit.
Yeah.
All the restaurants.
All the restaurants. I know. It's awful. But we do have good restaurants here.
So, it's very fortunate to live in a great community like this.
Right. So how does your day start? 7 a.m., 8 a.m.?
Oh, before that.
Before that, 5?
We get up early in my house, but I'm usually at work between 7:30 and 8 o'clock.
Oh, that's decent.
exactly.
Yeah. And, I mean, that's a long day for you.
Oh, it goes by quick.
Yeah.
It's a big town. There's a lot going on, and it never seems to be a dull moment.
Yes, Aaron. People forget this is a huge town, 103 square miles.
Sure.
And it's a lot to take care of.
We had 37 miles of coastline, so
And dirt roads.
and dirt roads.
Beautiful forests. And,
You got it.
and all of that. And he told me 5 minutes ago we had 3 minutes, and he lied to me again. So, Kenny, it's rolling. We're rolling. Aaron, thank you again. Tell
Sure.
Melissa for me that you were a great, great guest. You got a lot of information out.
Very good.
And very happy that you were here. You're welcome back anytime. If something you want to get out, you can come in for a half hour.
Sure.
And it won't have to be that long for you. So I want to say to everybody, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you. I'll see you.